So you're a psychiatry resident and you're about to lead a therapy group. Ever wonder what really makes them work or not work? Well, you're in the right place. We are going to break down the essentials of group psychotherapy, giving you a practical guide you can actually use to help facilitate some real change. First things first, let's get on the same page. What is group psychotherapy? It's way more than just getting a bunch of people in a room to talk. It's a carefully structured environment where a trained leader, that's you, helps members work on their goals by tapping into the powerful therapeutic forces that can only happen within a group. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with what group psychotherapy is all about. Then we'll get into the super important stuff like patient selection and prep. After that, we'll talk about the nuts and bolts of structuring your group, the magic ingredients that make it work, and what your specific role as a leader looks like. And we'll finish up with different formats, the critical ethics, and the ultimate goals of it all. Okay, let's dive into our first section. What is this modality really, and why is it such a key part of your toolkit as a modern psychiatrist? Here's why you need to get good at this. Group therapy is a total workhorse. Seriously, you'll use it everywhere, from inpatient units to outpatient clinics and private practice. Plus, in today's world of healthcare, the fact that it's so cost-effective makes it an absolutely essential skill to have. All right, let's talk about what might be the single most crucial step in this whole process: patient selection and preparation. If you get this part right, you're setting everyone up for success. Get it wrong and, well, things can go sideways fast. So who's a good fit and who isn't? On the left, you've got your ideal candidates. Think about the patient who freezes up in one-on-one therapy with an authority figure. The group can be a game changer for them. Or someone with borderline or schizoid traits who really needs to work on that sense of isolation. But on the right, we have some hard and fast rules. Anyone who is actively suicidal, severely delusional, or poses a physical threat to others, they are not appropriate for this setting. Safety first, always. So how do you put this into action? It's a pretty simple three-step process. First, you've got to do a full screening interview. Psych history, MSc, the whole deal. Second, you make the call on whether they're a good fit based on what we just talked about. And third, and please do not skip this step, you prepare the patient. Explain how the group works, what the rules are, what to expect. This one little thing makes a huge difference in reducing anxiety and keeping people in the group. Okay, you've carefully selected your members. Awesome. Now it's time to actually build the container for your group. Let's talk about the logistics. This is basically the standard blueprint. For size, you're aiming for about 8 to 10 members. That's kind of the sweet spot. Enough people for dynamic interaction, but not so many that people get lost in the crowd. Sessions are usually 1 to 2 hours, typically once a week. And as for who's in the group, a mix of people. A heterogeneous group is often best because it better simulates the real world that patients have to navigate every day. Now for the fun part. We've built the structure, but what's the secret sauce? What actually makes group therapy work? Let's get into the therapeutic factors, the real magic of the group. If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this: cohesion. It's that feeling of we-ness, that sense that, hey, we're all in this together, working on something important. It is the glue that holds the entire group together and allows the real, deep work to get done. And I'm not just saying that. It is widely considered the single most important factor for getting good results. Seriously. As a leader, your number one priority, especially early on, is to cultivate this sense of connection and shared purpose. Everything else builds on that foundation. Now, cohesion is king, but there are other powerful factors at play too. There's universalization, that incredible, oh my God, me too, moment when a patient realizes they're not the only one feeling this way. There's altruism, where people gain so much self-worth just by being able to help someone else in the group. You have catharsis, that huge emotional release from finally saying something that's been bottled up forever. And then there's the corrective familial experience, where the group becomes a sort of do-over family, a safe place to heal old wounds. So, with all these amazing dynamics swirling around, where do you, the leader, fit in? What is your actual function in the room? Let's break it down. Your most important job is to be a facilitator, not some kind of director or guru. And your most powerful tools? Empathy, warmth, and respect. These aren't just fuzzy, nice-to-have qualities. They are potent agents of change. They create the safety that allows people to be vulnerable and start to heal. Now, on top of creating that safe space, you'll also use more technical skills. For instance, you might offer an interpretation to help a member understand why they keep changing the subject or why they're using a certain defense. You're basically providing a cognitive framework, holding up a mirror, so they can see their own patterns in real time and hopefully start to change them. Okay. Ready to level up?
let's wrap up with some advanced stuff that every resident needs to have on lock. Different group formats, the critical ethical guidelines, and what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
These are the absolute non-negotiables. First, confidentiality. For you, it's a legal and ethical mandate. For the members, it has to be rule number 1, and you have to enforce it. Second, violence prevention. This goes back to that careful screening we talked about. And third, you have to set crystal clear sexual boundaries from day 1. No ambiguity. And just keep in mind, the outpatient model we've been mostly talking about is just one flavor. There are tons of specialized formats out there, from inpatient groups to self-help groups like AA, and even things like psychodrama. Each one is adapted for a different need. So what's the end goal of all this? The group basically becomes a social microcosm. It's like a little laboratory for life, where patients can see their own defenses and interpersonal patterns reflected back at them by others. And in that safe space, they can learn to be more self-aware and try out new, healthier ways of being with other people.
Ultimately, your patients are going to learn so much just by seeing their own stuff play out in the group dynamic. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important question. This one's for you, the resident, the future group leader. What will you learn by observing your own?